so much for Miami Dolphins. The pressure, he's in trouble. Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle. It's a Dolphin touchdown. Going deep upfield on the near side. Man open. Touchdown! Looking deep. He's got a man. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown! Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw, blitz coming, and get to him. No, he takes off running, and he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we're back here for another one as we dive Fin Too Deep. As always, with my co-host, the man returning with the tan, Neal Driscoll. He's got the life size Tua. That is not Tua Tagovailoa in real life behind him, ladies and gentlemen, but it is a life size cutout.
$49.99 at partycity.com, baby.
Neal, how you feeling, brother? How you doing?
Good. Got away with the family to Disney last week, and when you have two kids going to Disney, I need a vacation. So it was a lot of work, but a lot of fun, a lot of good memories. But I love it, man. My favorite time of the year in the next 60 days, or what, really 49 days between now, free agency, the NFL draft. The NFL, you look at your Twitter feed, it doesn't matter. LeBron James could be setting point records, but everything you see on there is talk about the NFL and all the movement and what quarterbacks going there. And, it's been good. I think every little day we've had a good nugget. Like today I woke up and Bradley Chubb was restructured, knocking off 14.7. I think we're going to see a couple more restructures, within, we all wanted them to happen now, so we know what we're working with. But these restructures, you got to be very strategic, right? In a lot of cases, all the Dolphins have to do by the start of the league year is get compliant under the cap.
Yep.
They don't have to restructure anyone until they sign people, right? So they might only make a small move for the rest of this week, but that's not going to prevent them. They might not know what they want to spend yet, right? Maybe they go into it saying, I'm not going to restructure Tyreek Hill for $19 million unless I have to. So, but the good news is, as messy as people could have interpreted the cap, we have now what we're, I think, 1 million over.
Well, what I was going to say is, if you think about it, right, after the Ethan Carter and the Byron Jones, take away the June 1st designation,
we got cap space.
We were 1.7 million over the cap. Now with 14.5 million being cleared up, we're like 13 million under the cap. If you really do include the post June 1st money that Byron frees up, we're under the cap now, right? So, right. I mean, you're 110% right.
I think they're going to free up. I think there's two restructures are going to happen, and that's going to.
Well, no, you know why? What you said has a lot of basis and evidence too, Neal. Look at what they did with Chubb. They restructured Baker when they got Chubb. They didn't restructure Baker before they got Chubb. Right. They got Chubb, then they restructured him. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of basis to what you're saying.
Well, and look, here's the thing: is say they decide, you know what, we're going to look for a trade partner for Emmanuel Ogbah and Cedric Wilson, and that's 17 million in cap space. Well, maybe they say, you know what, because we freed cap space by that, we don't have to restructure Terran Armstead, because restructures are tricky. There's various ways you can. But a lot of it's money movement where you're prorating the money longer down the road. The Dolphins have a lot of good young players that are going to need to get paid in the next few years. And I think, they have a lot of flexibility, but that doesn't mean you want to abuse it all up front. If you need it, use it. like, we'll talk about players, and if there's a
Jason's
guy,
right. Just go extend Wilkins and Connor. That alleviates a bunch of
$7-8
space.
million. Yeah, and that's why I really like, and we'll jump into this at a later date.
Because I'm going to say, Neal, if we don't extend Connor,
yeah,
I'm getting one in the draft, brother. I'm sorry. Like, because this is how I look at it, Neal. You got to start watching your own ass, right? And we already knew he's a top 5 run blocking left guard and a middle tier pass pro left guard. Now we're turning him into a top 10 center. Well, you know what I keep hearing? Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching in terms of versatility. I can give you top 5 guard play, or I can give you top 10 center play. Pay me. And we did it to ourselves, bro. So I don't know what. You better have a backup plan in case he prices himself out, Neal. That's all I got to say.
And that wouldn't surprise me, because the way I've looked at it all along is that if you're keeping one guy between Connor and Hunt, I'm going Hunt. I think Robert Hunt's a better right guard than Connor Williams at center, even though Connor Williams probably outplayed him this year, I think, in the long term. But I did a cap breakdown through 2025, and I don't want to get into all the details, but the amazing thing I see is that you're going to have these huge numbers for Byron Jones coming off the book, eventually a big number probably from Emmanuel Ogbah coming off. Jerome Baker in a couple years probably won't be here, and that's a huge number coming off. I mean, in 2025, X is a huge number coming off. I mean, you're going to have to pay Phillips, Holland, and Jalen Waddle. But when you do that, like, the Dolphins are projected to have over $170 million in cap space. You heard me right. Like, when you break that down and you take all that money off the books, now they're going to have to sign. That's not accounting for Tua's deal that's going to be in there, and Christian Wilkins. So when you put those things in there, they're probably going to be back at that $100 million range,
which is still fantastic with that core locked down.
But that's I'm talking about, like, the only time where the water gets a little muddy is this season. But because they've done such a good job, and that's Brandon Shore and Chris Greer have done such a good job of setting the cap up for the future.
Yeah.
Once we get out of this, which we're going to talk about it. I think we're going to add 2 or 3 starting quality players in free agency. They're not. I know that everyone wants to see, that big name running back in here. I don't think Mike McDaniel's going to do that, and I wouldn't hate it, but I don't think he's going to do that.
Yeah, I think they're going to run it back and draft a guy to add to the room. That's what I think is going
to. You know what I think this offseason is going to be about? The defensive coordinator you just got, and I think they're going to say, you know what, Vic, our offense was 6th in the NFL last year. We know our defense is going to be better because you're calling the plays. Tell me the players that you want in this defense.
Yeah. And they'll draft and they'll supplement guy positions with draft and depth pieces. That's what they'll do with it. Like, listen, don't get me wrong. If a guy like McGlinchey or Jawan Taylor comes available at the very, very right price, you can bet your bottom dollar they'll look into it and then they'll explore it. But I'm not expecting them to go break the bank on any of these guys asking for. I don't even know if they'd spend $12 to $13 million on an individual free agent. I think they're trying to spend the money, spread the money out, get the 3 quality starters, like you said. And I think it's going to be more of a quantity over quality type of free agency. And then they're going to supplement. The draft will be, that's when they'll start sprinkling in the offensive guys, right? Like if let's say they like a tight end, let's say a Tucker Kraft is on the board at a position they like, maybe they roll with that, maybe one of these linebackers that we all like, falls there and they make a move. I think I think if the right guy falls in one of those first 3 picks, this is what I would land it in. Linebacker, even if they sign a big name, linebacker, corner, right? I think that's for real when you look at what's going on there. And then that third one could be safety, running back. If a good offensive lineman falls, like there's so many things they can do with those first 3 picks. So I think, and I still think it's going to be supplementing the defense again, like what you said. Like if you look at the majority of wherever Fangio goes in the first year, a lot of offseason capital is usually spent on tweaking that defense in his image and his preference. Like, right? It's what they did with McDaniel last year when he came in.
Yeah, the one thing that I know you and I agree on is that I think we both agree this team needs to at least get one more quality offensive lineman. That's the only thing I don't think that they think they need, right? Like I actually think they believe that Austin Jackson and Liam Eichenberg can be legitimate starters in this league. I think it's crazy.
See, I don't buy that. I think Greer believes that more than McDaniel and the boys on the staff do. I think if you want my opinion, I think he's hoping a guy like McGlinchey says, I'll come there for the right price because there's no income state tax.
Right.
I'll take less than market value to come there. And you're talking about a top 5. I mean, I agreed 110. What Alf and the 3 yards per carry guys said is exactly what I said in my free agent breakdown, exactly why I was in the top 5.
What did they say? I missed it.
Okay, we both basically said in different ways he's a top 5 run. He's an elite run blocker.
Right.
I used elite. They said top 5. We both said he's a middle of the tier, pass pro guy. And I even doubled down. I said people are over exaggerating how bad he is in pass pro. Everyone has bad reps
because of one play, because of the Michael Parsons play.
Neal, go put on his reps. I know you probably haven't watched the game. Just go, because you can just go watch the offense. You can click through it. Just go watch him against Bosa and Khalil Mack in that Chargers game, bro. I used clips from the game in my free agency target video because, bro, he was driving their face into dominating Bosa in between the 20 to 20s and then dominating Khalil Mack when they got inside the red zone, bro. And it didn't matter whether it's pass pro or run set. He was, shooting them out, keeping them in front of them, mirroring them, or if they're getting over aggressive, Bosa tried a spin move. He mirrored him the whole way and just used his momentum and drove him to the ground, bro. And I said, you cannot be a crap blocker if you dominate those 2 names in one game. That's just impossible, bro. Sure, you're going to have your off days and he's a middle of the tier guy, but that shows what his ceiling can be. And I'm sorry, bro. I think we got the staff where McGlinchey can continue to develop and because he has gotten better.
He's a top 10 right tackle in football. He's a top 10 right tackle in football. And that, because
he's better than anything we have, non-named Terran Armstead and Connor Williams, who were begging to be choosers, bro.
I got crucified because I had him as a top 10 free agent, and I had a lot of comments.
No, he is.
Crazy. First of all, I think this free agent class is pitiful outside of linebacker. It's great for linebackers. It has its peaks and valleys, but for me, the quarter with Lamar getting franchised, if you're a Jimmy Garoppolo fan, have had it. I think the quarterbacks available suck. A lot of the running backs got franchise tagged. It's pretty dry there. I don't like the tight end class. I think the wide receivers that are available aren't that good.
Dude, I think he's a better fit than Caleb McGarry for what we want to do. He's an instant plug and play.
But how would you be unhappy with getting Mike McGlinchey when you would have 4 solid starters in this line, and then Austin Jackson could probably kick it and be a better guard than Liam Eichenberg?
Neal, that is the play, Neal.
Right.
If I'm McDaniel, I'd say, okay, Chris, you know what? I believe Liam or Austin could be a starter. So you know what I'll do? I'll put them in the same position battle. Best man wins the left guard spot between Connor and Armstead. Right tackle, sorry, brother. We saw Shello perform them by a quarter. I don't know. It was one of the 3 yards per carry guys today, too. Said they went back and they watched the 2021 film and they watched the film from last year and just how bad Austin Jackson really was. Bro, I'm just saying, and Austin Jackson, I think, had a better chance to suit this because trait-wise, this offense than Liam Eichenberg really did.
Yeah.
So, listen, stop trying to fit a square into a round hole. Right. Put them in one position battle, solidify, because here's the thing. Our offensive line can be top 10, top 12 if there's only 1 weak link as opposed to 2 weak links at 2 key spots.
And honestly, outside of finding a tight end, I think that's all they really need to do. And they need to add running backs. I'm acting like they're bringing back Wilson and Mostert when I say these things. I just think they're going to do that on short deals. And I do think they're going to spend a draft pick. But, I would say, getting a running back in the 3rd round, adding 1 quality starter offensive line and a tight end is probably all the work that's needed. And they might go get a good backup quarterback. But, we'll see. But on defense, linebacker, safety, cornerback, all needs, right?
Yeah.
And, we've seen Barry Jackson putting out little nuggets about linebackers. We've seen him talk about corners. The elephant in the room is I don't think it's any secret Jordan Poyer wants to be a Miami Dolphin. And the price that we've heard is way less than I anticipated for a guy that I have as a top.
I couldn't believe when I heard the cost, I fell out of my seat, bro.
Yeah, I have him as a top 10 free agent.
And it's way less than the franchise tag. I was just like, whoa. Bro, when I heard that number, I was like, I don't know how you reacted, but I remember I read it twice. No.
Off the top of my head, I couldn't name a better safety tandem than Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer. Off the top of my head, I couldn't, without thinking about it too deep. I'm thinking.
Tell everyone what you think about in terms of the first coming down the pipeline. You think, right? You think Poyer's going to be the first deal?
Yeah, I think Poyer's going to be the first deal. I think it's kind of the inside joke, the wink, wink, nod. And I think it's amazing that we have a culture where a guy in our division wants to leave a team that most would view as a better football team. That I don't view that. But
we'll talk about it in a little bit because that's one of the topics. But it's because he knows where the power lies, brother. Right. How do we feel about CJ Gardner? We love Gardner, but he's going to price himself out. He's going
to cost double Jordan Poyer. If I could add one player to the Miami Dolphins in all of free agency, and that's over Orlando Brown, and it would be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah.
He's going to get paid. He's so versatile.
And Javon Holland could go down as one of the greatest safety tandems of all time.
I would love him.
It'd be ridiculous.
And I'll say this with Chris Greer: you never say never, because I'll tell you this: aren't we on the like Tyreek Hill? We didn't see that coming, right?
What do you think about what Two of the Ways said here? He said $5. Alf said on the recent show that AJ isn't in their plans at right tackle, and they're looking at big upgrades at right tackle in free agency or trade.
We both like Alf. We talked to Alf a lot. I hope he's right. Alf is very plugged in. Alf and his crew does a great job. So I'll tell you what, man. If Alf's saying it, I would definitely think there's value in it. I don't know that. I haven't heard that, honestly. I do know that linebacker is one of the priorities of free agency, and that's where I've been spending a lot of time looking at the linebackers. And Reese and I both agree. If I could add one of them, it's Bobby Wagner. I think Bobby Wagner is the second best free agent besides Orlando Brown that's on the market. And the only reason I think
You don't think Levante or Bobby, it's just a toss-up? You're really not getting, there's really no fall off if you get one or the other.
I can tell you right now. So overall, I have Bobby Wagner as my second ranked free agent, and I have Levante David as my fifth. So we're grasping at straws. I think they're both tremendous. We're looking at 33 years old, I think it is, with Levante David, and Bobby Wagner's 32, so they're right around the same age. I do think they both have 3 good years of football left.
I agree.
I think they're both tremendous leaders. I think Levante David shakes free now because of that whole cap hell situation in Tampa.
That came out today. He's hitting free agency. It came out
right.
Today.
Here's the thing: is I have no idea whether Bobby Wagner would be interested in Miami. I'd be lying if I said that. I based off of the things I've heard, Levante David loves living in Florida. So you tell me this reason: if we leave day one of free agency and we've added Jordan Poyer and Levante David to this team, aren't you sitting there thinking
start fitting the rings, baby. Start fitting the rings. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry. We stay healthy. Start fitting the rings. That's all I got to say. Well, Ian Baller says Rob Jones, Liam AJ competes for left guard, right tackle, and free agency. Anyway, sorry. Continue on.
No, I was just going to say, one of the things that, we look at is, we want to plug all the holes we can. We want all the top-notch players. And I've seen people putting out there, let's go get Derrick Henry, and then we'll go get this player, next player. And look, that sounds really good,
Doesn't
man.
he have a $16 million cap hit this year?
Yeah, it's so hard to fit those in. If we got one running back, and I honestly don't want to trade draft picks.
Go get Kareem Hunt for $6 or $7 or $8 million if you really want to go get a guy.
Right. And if you're going to get one of the bigger name guys, the guy that I think is a good fit is Dalvin Cook. He doesn't have any guaranteed money outside of this year. And it's only $2 million guaranteed.
This class is so deep, though, Neal.
Yeah, well, and that's where, overall, I don't think spending on running back's the way to do it. I think getting that linebacker and that safety makes you dangerous come draft. If you get 3 starters, say you get that right tackle, that linebacker, and the safety, and you go in the draft knowing that you're probably going to take a running back in round 3.
Well, and what would you want most of your offensive money allocated to in free agency? Would you rather spend it on a running back or a tackle?
Oh, tackle.
Exactly. It's not even close, right?
It's not even close. I think because a lot of these running backs have a lot of mileage and they have big numbers. And you think about Dalvin Cook, right? He wasn't a first round pick, right? You look at these guys that are dominating the league, and they're, Nick Chubb wasn't a first-round pick. It doesn't always have to be in the first round. And you'll see running backs.
I think Roschon Johnson is a massive sleeper because of the Bijan Robinson shadow, and he doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires. I think Roschon is someone said it reminds him of Ronnie Brown and Cadillac when they were coming out.
Wow. No, that was one of my favorite times of football, is watching.
But think about it. I know you've watched Roschon. He's just living in Bijan, but the guy would get like 8 to 11 touches, and he'd like run for like 169 yards some games. You'd be like, what the hell?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, dude, there's the guy who I think's the running back that the Dolphins are going to draft in round 3, and the guy that I like. It's not.
Tucker?
No, I like Sean Tucker a lot, and he went to Calvert Hall where I went to.
I know they love him. I know they love him, bro.
I think they're going to go Zach Evans from Mississippi, because there's two when someone
I'm a fan.
Two people the Dolphins were around a lot at the combine that I was told was Zach Evans, and you're going to love this one, Keely Ringo. So,
let's go, Keely.
Well, we know that it's documented that they had a private meeting with Keely there.
Keely and Zach Evans. Let me check my list. I'm pretty sure I have my list.
He was.
Yeah.
Keely, I think, man, because Deonte Banks is
Buddy, if he's there at 51. Yeah, and I know they like Deonte Banks.
Well, and he's rising.
And they like your boy Julius Brents. I know they like your boy Julius Brents.
Like, a lot of those guys are rising, and guys like Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks seem to be like falling. And like what we saw with Tyreek Woolen last year, right?
And Keely didn't have the best combine ever.
He didn't. And you know what? That I like. Honestly, I think the combine, we lost Jack Campbell. I'm just being honest.
And anyone who wanted Darnell Washington, you lost him.
Yeah, they're gone. They're not going to be there.
Yeah.
But if we go get that safety and linebacker, let's just say Levante David and Jordan Poyer.
Yeah.
And then you go and you draft Keely Ringo, right? Mm-hmm. And then now you come in round 3, and let's say you get one of those running backs and Sam Laporta.
Okay.
I'm doing cartwheels.
Yeah.
I'm doing cartwheels. So I think there's a lot of damage the Dolphins can do with that second rounder and 2 third rounders. And those third rounders aren't late. They're kind of in the middle of the third round. So but I keep saying this though. If it gets to pick 45 and Jahmyr Gibbs is there. Jahmyr Gibbs is special. He's my 8th overall player in this entire draft. I think he's so electric. And I think he's a great compliment to Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. So, man, it's going to be fun. But, we got free agency first. I can't wait, man, because I do think Chris Grier, I think they know the window's here, man. I think they know there's a window here. They haven't paid Tua yet. At worst, he's going to cost them probably $23 million next year. Mm-hmm. They have this 2-year window to be great. Yeah. And it's not to say that it's going to be a drastic drop off a cliff after that, but when Tua's making $45 million a year, there's going to have to be some moves that are made to counter that, right? Even though they have a good cap flexibility. If I'm Chris Grier, I'm saying the name of the game for me is value. I'm looking for value. And we talked about this 3 weeks ago, Reason. Those $8 million contracts, like a Foster Moreau, like a Jordan Poyer, like one of those linebackers that are aging, but they're not. Because of that, Levante David isn't going to cost you $15 million a year, right? Because they are older and they want to win. Levante David's not going to go to the Houston Texans, right? Bobby Wagner's doesn't want to go to the Chicago Bears.
No, they want to go winners.
You want to go to look, the culture of Miami is as good as it's been in the post-Dan Marino era that I've ever seen, ever.
That's true.
And that's a huge pace. So Dolphins won't be sitting on their hands. I'll be honest, after everything I just said, it still wouldn't surprise me if breaking news, they just signed someone that was outrageous, a huge superstar, or made a big trade. Chris Grier, love him or hate him, he makes those big moves. So I think that's why the Dolphins are so interested to watch, because, they can make a lot of money open here quick. They don't have to pay their draft class right away because they know that Byron Jones money is coming free after June 1st, right? They can go out there and spend $45 million. And whether that's adding a superstar and another starter, 4 starters, there's a lot of ways to slice the pie. But, man, I have a feeling that this team's going to get a flux of talent before the draft, and that we're going to be on a podcast here in the next few weeks talking about –
next week, you mean?
Yeah, next week talking about they did even better than we expected. I think that's going to be what happens.
Man, it's unbelievable. Just so everyone sees exactly what we are talking about, though. It did come out earlier today. And actually first thing in the morning, just like Neal mentioned, Field Yates. If you look at this, Keenan Allen was restructured, Mike Williams was restructured by the Chargers, and second line, the Dolphins restructured Bradley Chubb's deal, creating $4.656 million in cap space. Also, Taylor Moton got his deal restructured right away as well. I mean, do you think they're setting themselves up for a big splash move right now? Because we keep hearing how much they want to address. Like, I've heard the same thing you did. Like, listen, Alf to me is as plugged in as they come. He's legit. He would never, ever, ever put his credibility on the line for a something like, on just a whim. You know what I mean? Like, Alf's as legit as they come with that stuff. So, I haven't heard right tackle as big of an issue as tweaking this defense and Fangio's vision.
Me too.
That that I've heard the same thing as you. So what do you think this is? Do you think this is setting up for them to make a big splash move here? That's what they're lining themselves up.
I think they're going to sign Jordan Poyer, who's a top 10 free agent to me, but I don't think that's the big move. I think there's going to be a bigger move. I do. I look, the Dolphins are really.
Do you think it's going to be defensive?
Yeah. And I think, what I actually, if I had to pick, I think it's going to be at the cornerback position. And, here's what I think about the Dolphins, right? They do good business now, right? They're not the desperate people that are overpaying for Mike Wallace or Brandon Albert, right? They're not giving Brandon Gibson $8 million a year and Brian Hartline $11 million a year like they did. You know what I mean? It's a lot different here. They make smart business decisions. They don't let draft capital get in the way to go get superstars. Like, honestly, and I just told you before I got on the air that I don't really personally want this to happen. It wouldn't shock me if they went in after Jalen Ramsey. It wouldn't shock me. Or if they check the market to see a good young corner like a Jamel Dean from Tampa Bay, who's a free agent, who's going to probably cost 15, 16 a year. Byron Murphy. I could see.
What about Bradbury? You think they'd go get a guy like Bradbury?
I think Bradbury's just, he's 29, so they're going to run into that same problem when they have with X. They're going to hit that 30-year wall. And I think X will be better. I'm not going to write off X. But what I'm saying, I think they want to get younger there, and Ramsey wouldn't really do it. But I do think that they're going to – if you think about the Dolphins, they're always making moves for not just this year, the next year. They're kind of 2 steps ahead. And what I think they all think, and I think, is that this is Xavier Howard's last year as a Miami Dolphin. If they June 1st cut Xavier Howard next year, I think it saves them $19 million against the cap.
So you got to find a successor, either in free agency or the draft.
Right. So if you go get a guy who's your bona fide number 2, the role Byron Jones was supposed to play, right? And next year he gravitates to your 1, and then you still get a guy in the draft that you're grooming behind him. Like, I think that they want to fix this secondary. They probably like the linebacker position in the draft most because I think it's fun. I think there's a lot of good players there. Dayan Henley is a guy from Washington State that I think they're going to like a lot. So like it's just one of those things that I think there's going to be a big move reason. I can't put my finger right on it. I'm speculating here, but I think what they did is they said, see you, Byron. We're going to release you. Corner's a huge need. I'm a big bring back Nick Needham guy, but I don't think Nick Needham's going to be ready for the first couple weeks of the season. And I don't know if Brandon Jones is, because these Achilles injuries, they're brutal. And I think a lot of times, reason when we have a guy who got injured in the last season, I've done this to myself a lot of times. I'm like, think it's a foregone conclusion that they're back in that lineup week 1. And when they're not, I start to get a little nervous. It's like, well, what the hell did you do off season? Well, we all heal differently, right? And, an Achilles injury could be a career ender if it's a bad one. So, like, I think that getting that cornerback in there is going to be huge, because if you have the versatility to let Cater Kohu groom as the slot guy, and you have X, who's more your number 2 in this scenario than your 1, you got kind of a 2A and a 2B with Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer over the top. Like, man, that's fun. And I think
we were meeting with a ton of corners at the combine too. Like a ton.
You know what? If we trade Emmanuel Ogbah and free up that $11 million, I think that screams we're going to make a splash. Actually, that's big savings. But
they got to figure out something with Ogbah or Cedric.
Right. Well, here's the thing, man. I don't know about you. I'm kind of excited to see Emmanuel Ogbah in this defense a little bit. I really am. Like, I'm taking the price tag out of the equation, and I'm thinking about the football player that we saw who's got off to a slow start last year, but even the year before that, he had the really good year. Like, what was that, 2020? I mean, he's been a good player here. That he earned that, that contract. He's a great depth piece. I would hope that his agent, who's Drew Rosenhaus, so I think it's very doubtful, would say, we love Miami so much. We know that he's not worth the $17 million. Like, can we renegotiate this deal and keep him here for a year or two? Because he's another guy that if you restructure...
Well, Drew already made his money off the first guarantee, right? Drew already made his money off the contract, bro. Drew already got paid.
So, honestly, I would trade Cedric Wilson probably if I had to trade a guy. You're probably not going to get anything.
Yeah, and use some of that money to bring Sherfield and Rick and Craycroft back.
Right.
Craycroft back.
Right. So, but it's going to be fun because you know what? I do think this. Don't you have a feeling that there's going to be a move that's not anticipated right now coming, whether it's a release, a trade of a player, bringing someone in? I feel like something's in the air.
Nothing which would shock me with these guys.
Right. The only things that would shock me are the names Jalen Phillips, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and maybe Javon Holland, and that's it. Like, honestly, man, like, the Dolphins are so unique that they'll make the move. Like, honestly, like, I love Christian Wilkins. Maybe they're saying to themselves, like, I don't want this. So, like, I wanted Wilkins to be here for a long time. But they haven't paid him. But none of the defense tackles got paid. But maybe they're saying, like, an interior defensive lineman, someone we can replace. We like Zach Sealer. He's probably going to be half the cost. What could we get for a guy like Christian Wilkins? And I'm just spitballing because, like, if they've proven anything to me in the last 3 years, they're not going to let the name on the back of the jersey change them from making a move that they think is better. Now, with that said, you better keep Christian Wilkins here. I fucking love the guy, and I think that he's the cornerstone to the defense. So,
yeah, for real. All right, Barry Jackson, bro. He put out
a great job, isn't he? He's doing a great job.
Coming for all the idiots lately. It's been hilarious. And he said, Dolphins looking for linebacker help, who's available, and things to keep in mind. The Dolphins opted to retain the same 3 veteran inside linebackers last season. His understanding is this won't be as simple as opting for the status quo again. The Dolphins will seriously explore signing an external addition to augment the group this time around. It's a deep class of inside linebackers and expect the Dolphins to look for at least one that fits a Fangio defense. I mean, we keep talking about guys like Bobby Wagner, but, I had him on my list. Drew Tranquill makes sense. Nick Kwiatkowski has played in this kind of defense. AJ Johnson. AJ Johnson. So there's guys out there, too, that you could supplement the depth with guys who have played in this, too, as well. So there, Drew Tranquill made my top 20 free agents. There are more than a dozen appealing external options, some particularly pricey. Among them, Bobby Wagner, who was cut by the Rams recently and was Pro Football Focus's #1 rated linebacker last season. Wagner awesome. Represents himself in negotiations, and there haven't been any leaks about his free agent discussions. One person familiar with Fangio's scheme cited Wagner, Philadelphia's TJ Edwards, and Tennessee's David Long among impending free agents who would be effective. A pursuit of Buffalo's Tremaine Edmonds would bolster the Dolphins and hurt a division rival, though he would be costly. In Tampa Bay's Levante David, and Las Vegas Denzel Perryman, and everyone knows I wanted Perryman a couple years ago when he was a free agent on the cheap, are among other names to keep in mind. The issue is what the Dolphins can afford. They're $1 million under the cap, and this was written before the Chubb, right? And can clear out $25 million in space by restructuring. They edited it, so they updated it. By restructuring contracts of Tyreek Hill, Emmanuel Ogbah, and Teron Armstead. So Bradley Chubb's deal was restructured. They have updated this article since. But they also need to sign a new cornerback 2 running backs, a veteran tight end, backup offensive lineman, a safety, 2 backup edge players, and a backup quarterback. So whether Miami can afford a top inside linebacker remains questionable. The entire inside linebacker room is in flux because Landon Roberts and Duke Riley are free agents. Channing Tindall is largely unproven after playing 9 defensive snaps as a rookie, and Jerome Baker is 9 days from his $8.4 million 2023 salary becoming fully guaranteed. So I've been told he's not safe. If the Dolphins, and even he says if the Dolphins keep Baker, even he says if. Oh man, I've heard they could totally rebuild that whole, and Tindall would be the only man standing.
And reason when I said there's something in the air, honestly, the thing that comes to my mind is I think there could be
they're going to rebuild that. And I think they're going to. I think there is a very high possibility they rebuild that whole interior.
And you know what? While we're on top, do you think he could fetch you a 4th or a 5th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been getting better every year. So if the Dolphins keep Baker, and a strong case could be made to do so, the question is how. And I agree there is a strong case to make because we got no depth. The question is how much they're willing to spend on inside linebacker to play next to him. But do I expect the Dolphins to try and add a starting caliber inside linebacker if it fits the price point, which is unclear? Thoughts, metrics, financial status, and the outlook for all the Miami Dolphins linebackers. So he sits here, he goes over Jerome Baker and his contract, $8.4 million next season.
Bad contract. It's a bad contract.
I told you all it was a bad contract when he signed it. Remember, people tried to crucify me on Twitter when that happened. I
like Jerome Baker. I think he's a good football player.
He's gotten better every year, but give me a break.
Bad contract.
Yeah. So PFF rated him 18th among 84 linebackers, not including edge, and 13th and 31st against the run. Anyways, he goes into what we already know is coverage, et cetera. Landon Roberts, no longer here. Duke Riley, no longer here. Channing Tindall, don't even know the system.
I still like him. I still like him, but I think he's going to take some grooming.
Yeah, he's going to take at least another year, right? All right, so they added edge. I don't know why he added the outside linebackers. Andrew Van Ginkel, okay, so here's the thing. Look at all the names he's added. Melvin Ingram on the list, free agent. Andrew Van Ginkel, free agent. Bradley Chubb, outside linebacker, edge, not interior. Phillips, outside linebacker, edge, not interior. Sam McGuavin, free agent and fodder. Channing Tindall, okay. We still think he's a year away because of how hard it was for him to pick up the last defense.
He'll be on the roster.
Yeah, but do we think he's going to pick up this new defense right away if he had problems with the other one? I don't think so. Duke Riley, UFA. Landon Roberts, UFA. We have nothing here at linebacker, and this is where I'm going with all this. I think this restructuring, I think it is on the table, Neal, to rebuild that entire interior, and with the thought of we will build it with the thought of if Tindall develops, cool. If he doesn't, we've still built it anyways. That's how I feel they're going.
Right. Well, if you get rid of Jerome Baker, you're going to probably add 2, right? That's a fair assumption.
I could see 3. I could see them going again. Get rid of Baker, go get a Levante or a Bobby, and then you get a Drew Tranquil or someone like that to complement them, and you're set. And then you go get a depth guy behind them that has experience in the system that's okay with not being the one or the 2.
Johnson, like an AJ Johnson.
Fixed.
Perfect.
There you go.
Right.
And then we don't even need to worry about it in the draft because all the guys that we really like are testing out of this world. Like even Owen Popo was tested out of this world, right? So
yeah, I think Jerome Baker could be on the move. I feel that.
We'll see. It's something that I've heard has been floated around. I'm not certain, but I have heard for weeks, and I reported a few weeks ago on Patreon that he's not safe. Watch Mr. said, reason hope all is well for the Fins fam. It's my birthday today, and I'm celebrating with some scotch and Merino highlights on YouTube. Cheers. Don't
Happy
get
birthday,
lost in the bottle,
That's awesome.
brother.
Yeah.
Hey.
I used to drink whiskey and watch Dan Marino, Heart of a Champion, that old VHS. That was one of my go-tos when it was my birthday. So I know the...
Bro, the shots start releasing down your throat just like his as quickly as his release throwing a football, bro. And next thing you know, it's over.
Yep.
So, all right, continuing on here. Let's get into this. The word is, and it has been, that Rodgers is going to be a Jet.
He's going to the Jets. Yep.
Yeah, by the end of the week. His girl lives out there. It's really that or deal with sitting behind Jordan Love or retire right now, it seems. I know a lot of people on different social media platforms, Neal, because me and you haven't really this is the first time people are going to see us have this open conversation because we haven't had it yet. I think people are underestimating Aaron Rodgers. I think, you want my honest opinion? This is why I loved it when you suggested this topic. I think, and it's funny because I said to someone yesterday, and I'll repeat it now publicly so the receipt's out there. I think the Dolphins are going to win the division, and I think the Jets are going to finish second, and I think they're going to get a wild. Yep. I think the loss of Leslie Frazier, they're trying to paint it as, oh, he's stepping away from football when we all know in the know that he's gone. He's not coming back. He took the fall when it really wasn't his fall to take. Now they're going to lose their, arguably, other than Milano, the heart and soul of their defense with Tremaine Edmonds and Jordan Poyer. I think I've heard they're going to go heavy building the offense. And so I think they're going to imbalance their team, and they're going to run into a team that they got a good enough defense to stop them. And they're got a good enough offense that's going to blow their defense out of the water. I think we're a team that lines up with that, with the moves we're expecting our team to make defensively in free agency and through the draft. I think there is legitimate, you brought it up, so this is your topic. I think there is a legitimate power shift happening with Rodgers to New York. And I think it's not us falling back. I think it's the Bills regressing. And now, people don't realize now we got another team that could potentially take wins away from the Bills. And that's going to help us even further right now. So I think, now let's be honest, until Tua got that concussion, Tua was outplaying Aaron Rodgers in that game by a quarter mile. It wasn't even close. All right. The concussion is what even the playing field for Aaron Rodgers in that game. All right. That's just a fact. So I'm not worried. And I'm gonna even go even bolder. I think next year we could be talking about Tua and Rodgers being the two most impressive quarterbacks in that division if both stay healthy by the end of the season, because I look at Rodgers with Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall coming back. They got a good offensive line. And then I look at Tua in a year, but they're still going to be in year one, right? So they're going to have those growing pains a little bit. But I look at us in year two with the guys we have and the additions I think we'll make through the offseason. I think this could be Aaron Rodgers and a Tua head-to-head. We might have just got over the Bills hump last season with how Tua played and winning a game, and it looked like we should have won the second game in their house before we got to the playoffs. And we might go into now it's the Bills are a pastime, and now it's the Jets and the Dolphins all over again. And Neal, I know me and you around the same age growing up, we remember the Testaverde Marino battles. We remember this is why they kept us in the AFC East and didn't move us to the AFC South. It wasn't because of, it wasn't even because of the Bills. It was because of this Jets rivalry. And I think we are in a position where it may take center stage again in 2023, Neal.
Right. Now, look, I'll be honest. Aaron Rodgers the Jets landing Aaron Rodgers is a big deal for them. It's a big move. And, I personally wanted them to get Derek Carr because I like Derek Carr, but he doesn't scare me. Aaron Rodgers is lethal. I think he's still a top 5 quarterback in football. What a lot of people say was his down year last year. He still threw 26 touchdowns to 12 interceptions.
But don't you think he was checked out? Don't you think he didn't want Devontae left? He didn't want to be there. I think he was totally checked out, bro.
You're getting to my thing where I do think the Jets will be a playoff team. But it would not surprise me also if this is an utter disaster for this 3 reasons. First of all, the Jets are $3 million under the cap, and Aaron Rodgers' contract is $50 million. So how much are the Packers going to eat? Regardless, they're going to have to take resources off their defense. And the names I've heard are C.J. Mosley and Carl Lawson. Carl Lawson's overpaid. He hasn't really made a lot of impact there. I think he makes a $15 million cap hit relief if he's gone. C.J. Mosley was a really good football player.
He's a general. When he's healthy, he's a general.
And they're going to have to pay Quinnen Williams here. And I think the Jets have a 1-year window with Aaron Rodgers. I'll start with that. Now, today I saw that the rumor is that the Packers won't take anything less than a first-round pick. If the Jets give up their 13th pick, because I think if the Jets keep their first-round pick and go get a Broderick Jones at left tackle And they still have, Elijah Vera Tucker coming back, Laken Tomlinson, and Mekhi Becton looks like he's got himself into some shape. Then the Jets could be a problem because I like Elijah Moore. I like Garrett Wilson. I think Breece Hall, if he comes back healthy, he's a good football player. They had a good defense. I want to see what they have to lose on that defense with the Rodgers acquisition, because if they have to shave those guys, Corey Davis as a receiver that they'll probably have to cut, who hasn't really panned out there anyway. But is Aaron Rodgers going because he still loves football, or is it because $60 million is on the table and his girlfriend lives in New York, right? Like, that's the question I don't know the answer to, because I remember when Brett Favre went to the Jets, and I was like, holy shit, Dolphins don't have a chance. And then he was throwing pick sixes to Phil Merling in the freaking game that got us into the playoffs, right? So, like, when you think about it, like, here's the thing is I think the Jets are going to probably be a 10-11 win team that can flirt with the playoffs. But I think this is the Miami Dolphins division. And
I agree with that. Yeah.
I'm not going back. I think Vic Fangio is the biggest acquisition of this whole offseason. And I'm with you. Not only did they lose Leslie Frazier, they're losing Poyer and Edmonds. The Stephon Diggs situation is really weird.
Those cryptic tweets, eh? I don't know what's going on.
He's very unhappy. In the playoff games, he's yelling at Josh Allen's on the bench. Like, we've seen tempers flare. Getting the Bills off your profile. He's already paid, right? It's not like Stephon Diggs is looking for money.
He's wanting to win.
Brothers in Dallas. Dallas needs a weapon. The Bills need cap relief. What receiver is really going to be there when they're on the clock? I don't know, man. I could see Stephon Diggs getting moved, and I know that's crazy. And if they lost Stephon Diggs, they'd be an ordinary football team. If they lost Edmonds, Poyer, Leslie Frazier, and Stephon Diggs, that would make them very ordinary to me. Josh Allen's still good, top 5 quarterback in football, but, you can't win a game by yourself in this league. Gabe Davis started the season like gangbusters, and, dude, did he regress halfway through that season. In the playoffs, he did nothing. He looked pedestrian. Tre'Davious White, their best corner, looked like he lost a step coming back from an injury. Micah Hyde was battling injuries. Matt Milano, he's a stud. Greg Rousseau is a good football player. Did any of those
unproven?
Did those young defensive linemen really take that step? I remember the draft. I wanted Ed Oliver. I wanted him to be the guy that we got. It was Christian.
And I really like Boogie Basham.
Yeah, Christian Wilkins is a far better player than Ed Oliver at this point, right? So I think it's a good move for the Jets. It's a big name quarterback, but I could see it going down in flames as much as I could see it being successful, just because, man, if they have to take on that contract and give up a first-round pick because the Jets are desperate, right? Like, I'll say this. I'd much rather the Jets get Aaron Rodgers than Lamar Jackson because it's short-term. It's a 1-year thing, 2 years. I don't want a 26-year-old Lamar Jackson in my division for the next 10 years, right? Like, I don't want that. So, get Lamar in the NFC, which I heard from a little birdie, San Francisco.
They are not out. They are not out.
So
they are
just
exploring.
So I think that, like, sure. And you know what, man? I'm not scared of Aaron Rodgers. Bring it, man. I don't want the division to be like some cakewalk through, and it's not going to be. I want the Dolphins, Jets, and Bills to beat the shit out of each other, and the Patriots still to be a challenging team. Man, I want the Dolphins to win a Super Bowl, but I don't want the teams to lay down in front of us. Let's go earn it. Like, I'm not afraid of Aaron Rodgers. We had him beat last year. Like he doesn't scare me. If this Dolphin team's healthy, I don't care who they have. Sauce Gardner, good. You want defensive rookie year? Go on an island 1-on-1 with Tyreek Hill, see if you win, buddy. DJ Reed, good. You're a good comeback story. Go 1-on-1 on an island with Jalen Waddle. Let's see what you got, brother. Like all this stuff to me.
Well, remember Jalen was giving Sauce the work when they were going 1-on-1. It's just Jalen wasn't getting targeted as much as Tyreek, but he was working him in and out.
There's not a cornerback in football that can consistently cover those two guys. There's not. It's impossible. So, look, Aaron Rodgers is a huge upgrade for the Jets. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Mike White is a guy that I would like maybe as our backup, but Zach Wilson's an utter disaster. So what they've said is their number 2 overall pick, which they should have probably had Trevor Lawrence, and they won a meaningless game. But, bring it on. They're going to get him. The Jets fans on Twitter are going to go crazy, act like they won the Super Bowl, just like they did when they had Brett Favre, right? You remember all the Jets were walking around with Favre jerseys. That ended in disaster. Chad Pennington, the original Jet quarterback there, beat him in his own home, right? That was one of my favorite wins that we've had in forever, man. So, I'm not afraid of Aaron Rodgers. I think it's a good move for them. I don't really give a shit if he's a better quarterback than Tua or not. Like, that doesn't bother me. I have such fatigue talking about quarterbacks that are better than Tua. Like, I'm over all that. Like, Tua's our quarterback. Do I think Tua with this team can go and beat the Jets consistently? Yep, I do. I think he beats New England consistently. I think if we had him in the playoffs, we win a playoff game. I think he's the most underappreciated player right now in the NFL, and I'm all about it. I want the news to be that they've given him the fifth-year option, but they're going to be strategic, and they're going to wait about it. I don't want them to do what they did with Daniel Jones, because look how that, Daniel Jones is making $40 million a year. I cannot believe that happened. I cannot believe that happened. I wouldn't even want Daniel Jones as my backup, man. I'm being honest. Give me Baker Mayfield over Daniel Jones. If you're the Giants, like, reason just off topic, and you have pick 25 this year, and you're paying Daniel Jones $40 million, why the hell didn't you go put your name in the Lamar hat?
It's true.
Like, why would you have not done that? I don't get it. Like, but the shift of power.
You're right. Yeah.
The shift of power in the AFC, the Chiefs are the man. Quote Ric Flair, to be the man, you got to beat the man. They're number one on that mountain. I think Jacksonville's going to be a tough out this year. I do.
The Bengals will be a tough out again.
Bengals are going to be a tough out. I think the Ravens are in trouble because I think this Lamar thing is going to linger all season. I think what will likely happen, unfortunately, for Lamar is that he's going to probably be stuck on this for a whole another year. And I think he's willing to sit out. At worst case scenario, just show up when he has to. They have a new offensive coordinator. Look, they have the worst receiving core in football. They can't be active in free agency because they don't know what they have to pay Lamar Jackson really yet. Like, it's kind of a disaster there. I think they have good talent on the defensive side of the ball, don't get me wrong, and probably the best special teams unit in football. But with that said, like, I don't know, man, until I know who their quarterback, if they're trotting Tyler Huntley out there, they're winning 7 games. You know what I mean? So, and then I look at the Raiders. I look at the Broncos. I look at the Chargers. Dude, they're the same team they're always going to be until something changes. I think the Bills are declining. I would say the Dolphins are the third best team in the AFC heading into the season. That's I think.
And we ain't even finished, and the offseason ain't even over yet.
Right. I think you got to give it to the Bengals and Chiefs because they keep proving it year after year. We're the kind of like that upstart that, look, I had fun in the playoffs, but I was ultimately disappointed in the season, the way it's shaped. Mahomes is Mahomes. But look, they might lose Orlando Brown Jr., right? So all these teams are losing big players. Like, I don't see Miami losing a player of substance, right? Like, Byron Jones didn't play last
impact. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's going to be fun, man. But no, I can't wait till Monday, the tampering window. It's one of my favorite days of the year.
I can't wait. But let's talk about this before we get out of here. The Dolphins get no compensatory picks this year. If Gesicki does get a contract, and let's say we get a compensatory pick out of it, that won't be till 2024. Did you see the 49ers got 7?
Yeah, and 3 of them in the third round.
Oh, my God. They got the 99, 101, and 102. They got the 173, the 216, the 253, and the 255.
Right.
Holy.
And that's going to piggyback off what I heard. So I can say this. I heard
they're going to stack a bunch of them into.
Well, I heard a team that didn't have a first round pick this year was interested in Lamar Jackson. And I originally, I'm like, dude, the Dolphins going to keep fucking doing Scott, man, I dropped 3 F-bombs. I got 15 in the swear jar. But like, are the Dolphins going to keep doing this to me, right? Like, every time I think Tua's the guy, like, go do something. But like, the guy told me, he's like San Francisco, like, think they can make a big run. Trey Lance would be a part of a package potentially if needed be, but like Lamar Jackson, it makes a lot of sense about this. So you think about this, right? Though their first round picks are late, right? They make the financials work. They lose their first round picks, but man, they have so many late compensatory picks. Like those 3, like, there's an advantage to hire minority coaches, and I think it's great because I think that is something that needed to be looked at, and I think it's great to have diversity in the coaching. And I think San Francisco's kind of built that culture, like, right, like, we're going to build a foundation of this, but look how it can benefit your freaking football team. 3 third-round picks added, dude. If that was us right now, I'd be on a mock draft machine until the draft. I wouldn't get off. I would quit my job and just sit here and do mock drafts because that'd be like. You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine?
Yeah.
the 49ers are going to be a really, really good team.
That's how they keep reloading, man. They keep reloading. They
might put me at quarterback, man, and be a good team. I don't know, man. They're so loaded on both sides of the football. Bosa, Fred Warner. I mean, they could use a couple corners maybe, but man, it's going to be. Look, can the Dolphins beat the Chiefs? That's the question you got to ask yourself. And I'll be honest, I used to think there was no shot. I'm starting to believe that the Dolphins can contend as soon as this year. I really am. And the right moves in free agency, a good, solid draft.
And health.
And if they could stay healthy, and none of us know what's going to happen with the availability of Terron Armstead or Tua or any of these players next year. We'd be lying if we said it. But I can say this. It's hard to think that the Dolphins are going to get bit by the injury bug like they did this year. Like, they battled so much. X missed time.
And we had a bunch of healthy years leading up to that. Like,
right.
X had been able to stay healthy. And, we had really had, and usually, we had gone like 2 seasons without any real major injuries. And usually you don't go that long.
Right. And that's why it's like last year was kind of like here, when it was happening, I was like, look, it catches up with every team. It happens. It's going to happen. And unfortunately, the ball's just now every play that, you saw sometimes waddle down. I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
I think the good news is that, I don't see any ramifications. I'm not a believer that a person.
And we still got to the playoffs with all those injuries.
And almost beat Buffalo Bills with Skylar Thompson, right? So
I'm just saying.
It's a good time to be a Dolphins fan. That's kind of the motto of this show. And look, I think I'm not going to act like I can't be a homer at times. I get really excited, but the foundation and the team building is here. And that's why it's funny. You can go out and get a Terron Armstead. You can go out and get a Tyreek Hill the next offseason and still be financially in the space to go add a Bob Wagner. Reason to your point, though, one of the main reasons I like Bobby Wagner is because it doesn't upset the compensatory pick formula.
Yeah.
So if you go get him, and if you think about this, take Jordan Poyer out of the crazy equation, because a guy I like a lot, if we don't get Poyer, is John Johnson III. If you add Bobby Wagner and John Johnson III, you wouldn't do anything to upset the compensatory pick formula. So they do it because think about this. It's not just
smart.
Those two. Melvin Ingram is an unrestricted free agent. Andrew Van Ginkel is an unrestricted free agent. I think we'll bring back Mostert, but some of these contracts could actually pay dividends. And if you're adding a 4th rounder with Gesicki and a 5th rounder with Van Ginkel next year to your draft capital, man, and you start stacking that year after year, the Ravens did that year after year, and the guys they drafted were like Matt Judon with some of those 3rd-round picks and Zadarius Smith. And you can kind of take some of those chances on some of those guys, and those compensatory picks can make you very dangerous. So I think the Dolphins should be wise here and actually take those things into consideration.
Yep. And, man, we are only 4 days away from the tampering window opening. Guys, we'll be back next week, hopefully to cover some very, very good and interesting news. Over 450 of you still in the room. Smash that like button. Subscribe on the way out. I appreciate all of y'all for coming through on this Thursday night. We will see all of y'all in the next one. As always a pleasure. Neal, everyone, stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed. Fins up, guys. See y'all on the next one.